The discussion has picked up about breaking up big banks, but there's one in Europe, a big global bank, that has sort of come up with a way to maybe square the circle. It may not appease regulators, but it might be good for investors. Rob, you had a look at this. Tell me how you got to this
Banco
conclusion.
Santander. It's like the column is sort of begins with the idea that, like, can you imagine learning something from a Spanish bank, right? That Citigroup or JP Morgan or these guys. But actually what Santander has done, and they're doing right now, they're in the market right now to sell a big chunk of their Mexican business.
So they're going to IPO this.
They're going to IPO it, and this will join. They've done IPOs of their Mexican, Brazil, Argentina, Poland, and then Banesto, which is the Spanish retail bank. They're planning and hoping to do the same in the UK when markets can,
So they keep a big stake in these things, but
they keep a big stake, like 70 to 80% of the company. But what they get is a floor on the valuation of that operating business, which then provides a certain amount of comfort when you look at the overall company. Now, of course, the company, Banco Santander, the holding company, as it were, is going to trade at a discount to the sum of its parts. But what you've done is create a certain floor on the valuation of these businesses. And so what I've done is try to think, well, hey, who else could do something like this? So Citigroup has this big operation, and an even bigger operation
that they bought in Mexico.
Yeah,
right?
in Mexico. It's not as profitable, so it might not trade at the same multiple of 2 times book. But there's a lot of thought that it could trade much higher than certainly.
But there's obviously Citi has far-flung operations everywhere,
right,
just like Santander does.
Yeah. Now it doesn't. It may not have the kinds of strengths in regional retail markets that Santander does, which is helpful for them. But it does have these big operating businesses like
Asia.
GTS, Global Transaction Services, Asia, which is Credit Suisse put out a report sort of looking at the different regions and saying Asia alone was worth $40 billion,
which is some huge.
I mean, it's an $80–90 billion company.
Value, right.
So you're talking about really creating value. Now, there are a whole bunch of other questions. I mean, Citigroup has this toxic, this group of toxic.
They've already done a
assets.
little bit of this. They've got a bad bank with stuff they don't want in there.
But the idea is, look, if as Sandy Weil came out, remember about a month ago, and said, oh, golly gosh, it's time to break up the banks. The point is, there's a way to kind of get at some of the issues. And actually, regulators, you mentioned regulators, but regulators aren't that. A lot of regulators like the idea of foreign operating businesses being sort of self-standing because that means you can kind of ring fence them in the event of a crisis.
It does create sort of a ring fencing, but everything is still stitched together.
Right.
And operationally.
Right.
To a
and
certain
so
extent,
from the holding company perspective, the CEO, the board, they still get to say they're giant global bankers. They should create some value by showing more transparently the value of these divisions. And it kind of gets around this issue that Sandy Weil and regulators and other people are worried about these banks being too big to manage and understand.
We will leave it there, and we'll be back with more Breaking Views next week.